see. I've just recorded this video and I talked for quite a long time, and then I realised afterwards that it stopped recording. I think my microphone, I'm not sure quite what happened. I think maybe I ran out of camera space, but also my Tascam, which this microphone is connected to, ran out of battery. So either way, it stopped recording. And so I was just talking to myself for a while. So I'm re-recording this video, which is a bit of a weird thing to re-record because I've already said everything that I wanted to say, and now I'm sort of saying it again, which makes it feel a bit like I've rehearsed it. But we'll give it a go and see what happens. Perhaps I'll be more articulate. Who knows? Yeah, I thought today we could talk about TV. TV shows, dramas, comedies, mainly. Specifically, British TV shows that are on BBC iPlayer. Which I'll get into in a bit. I'm trying a slightly different setup today. I've got my camera further away with a longer focal length, which means rather than the camera being right in front of me, it's a few meters away, which feels quite strange for ASMR, because having a camera right in front of you can feel quite natural, even though the sound isn't coming from the camera. Having a camera quite close to you makes it feel like you're talking to someone who's right in front of you, which makes the softly speaking and whispering feel quite natural. But it's further away today, which means it's harder to sort of maintain eye contact, and it feels a little less real. I don't know. But we'll go with it and see what happens and see how it comes out. My understanding of focal length is that the longer the focal length, the more compressed the image looks, but also people's faces and stuff look more normal, more natural. Short focal lengths can often accentuate certain features and make people's faces look quite strange. Certain elements bloated, so I thought I'd try this with a slightly longer focal length to see how this looks. Yeah, I wanted to talk today about TV shows. I watch quite a lot of television dramas and comedies, and of late, maybe the last 6 months, I've stuck basically solely to BBC iPlayer. Apologies, I just knocked the microphone, and I'll probably cut that bit out. Yeah, over the last 6 months, I've been watching solely stuff that's on BBC iPlayer. I'm trying to sort of platform hop and spend a period of time with one platform, watch everything that I want to watch that's on it, and then move to another. And hopefully when I move to another, a lot of the things that I want to watch will have multiplied, and there'll be a wealth of stuff I want to watch. There's sort of that feeling that I think a lot of people might recognise of sort of looking at Netflix and sort of scrolling through, trying to find something that takes your fancy, not finding much. And it's quite expensive to have multiple subscriptions, so just having one, in this case with BBC, the only thing I pay for is the licence fee, which we have in the UK, which you have to pay for anyway if you watch anything live. That's all I've been paying for, just the licence fee, which I pay for anyway. So I don't have any subscriptions to Netflix or Apple TV or Now TV or Amazon Prime or anything like that. Just the BBC iPlayer. I obviously could also watch ITV shows or Channel 4 shows, which I've not done much of recently. And I'm enjoying it as a way of navigating this world where everything is a subscription. I don't really like paying monthly subscriptions to things. It's not a model I love. I'd rather pay for something once and then just have it. So I've been watching BBC shows. I've always loved the BBC. I think their programming is great. The BBC has quite a lot of controversy surrounding it at the moment, particularly in relation to politics and bias, and I don't really want to get into that in this video, but something I would say is that no matter what you think of the BBC's position as a so-called unbiased network operator, voice, the drama and comedy output of the BBC is very, very, very good. And I've always enjoyed the BBC and their shows. And I think a lot of the best stuff that is made, in the UK at least, is on the BBC. And a lot of it gets overlooked. People here in the UK do have Netflix subscriptions and other subscriptions, and people are often focused on those shows, which are often American shows. And there's some really good stuff there, but the BBC makes some very, very good content, and I don't think it necessarily always gets championed enough. It's often, I don't know, it doesn't get as much attention as it should. And I feel quite strongly about that. And I suppose this video is sort of me talking about things I've watched recently that I've liked. My favourite TV shows of the year so far and of the end of last year. But also it's me sort of passionately championing the BBC through this kind of lens, through the lens of their fiction output. For years, ever since I was a teenager, I've loved the BBC, and I've loved the stuff they've made, and I think often it's way better than the stuff you find on Netflix. Particularly because I'm British, and so there is a familiarity and an attitude, a way of looking at the world that feels quite familiar to me with the BBC. And in my age demographic, I think we've lost contact with that. I have a book here. This is my current notebook that I'm using, and I've written down some things I've watched recently that I liked. I thought I could quickly talk about and discuss and recommend some things. I've written a fair few things down on here. I just went through BBC iPlayer and looked at what I'd watched recently, and wrote various things down. A lot of this stuff is more in the kind of 30-minute comedy drama, light-hearted territory, just because that's what I've had more time to watch recently. There's a lot of stuff on the BBC which I've watched that, or I haven't watched rather, that I know is quite big and popular, but I just, sometimes it's quite hard to be able to commit to longer form stuff. I've just not felt as interested in it. I felt quite interested in a lot of these things. But there are some more longer form drama stuff on here. The great thing about the BBC is they do a lot of very good sort of mini-series, 6-parters, 4-parters, 3-parters. which means you can get through a story, a piece of work quite quickly, and often they won't have, multiple series. It might just be a one-off series, or there might just be 2 or 3 series, and it feels like you're watching something that is packed full of really good content, really good stories, high quality over quantity, which I sometimes feel the American model towards television errs towards. These sort of flagship shows that are 10 episodes, 12 episodes, that go on for years and years and years and years. With big writers' rooms and stuff. The sort of culture here in the UK around creating dramas sometimes plays into that, but often there is things are slightly more sort of contained in short form series, which is great because you can watch more things and not just have one show that you're watching for months on end. Yeah. So, what have I been watching lately? Well, I've just finished watching a comedy drama series called We Might Regret This. Series 2 just came out a week or so ago, and I finished that. It was only 4 episodes. The first series had 6 episodes, and I think it's a bit strange that the second series only has 4, because the norm is normally 6 episodes of 30 minutes is quite normal as a sort of format. I don't know whether it was meant to be 6 or budget cuts, or I don't know what went on there, but it only had 4 episodes. I think the first series is very, very, very good. It's this series developed by Kyla Harris, who's paraplegic, and the series follows a character that they play who's this Canadian paraplegic artist navigating a relationship with her older boyfriend and his family, his ex-wife, his son, his other son who passed away when he was a kid, and a relationship with her PA and her best friend who sort of becomes her PA. And the first series is very, very witty, very, very... I really liked it. It just cuts straight to it, the first scene is her PA walking in on her having sex with her partner, and it's just quite funny. And Sally Phillips is in it, who plays the ex-wife character, and she's great in it. I mean, the character is an absolute boss, very no nonsense. It's quite empathetically written in many ways. I really, really, really liked the first series. The second series I still like, but it feels a bit like an afterthought, a bit like a tag-on to the first series. Maybe not as rich in material. And because it's only 4 episodes, the arcs the characters go on feel a bit rushed, a bit bitty, and some of the writing I don't think is as good. But it's a cool series, and it's quite funny. I definitely recommend it. And it's a style of writing that feels reasonably unique, which I really like. I've also finished watching recently, which came out this year, Lord of the Flies, which I think is a must-watch. The Lord of the Flies, if you don't know the story of the Lord of the Flies, it's a book written by William Golding in the 1950s. It's set sort of during the idea there's this war. I don't think it's World War II, I think it's an imagined war some sort of imagined nuclear war. And it's set on this island that a bunch of boys, I think they go to an all-boys private school, I think is the implication. They end up on this island. It's sort of a desert island kind of story. And all the adults have died in an airplane crash, and these boys are on this island. And the story sort of unfolds following a sort of collapse around society rules. And it moves towards sort of savagery and chaos. It's a very good book. I remember reading it when I was doing my GCSEs, studying it for that, and it felt like a really good novel to read at that time because it was quite relatable in some ways. It's about kids, a bit younger than I think I was. I think they're sort of meant to be sort of 12, 13. But it's quite rare, I think, when you're at school to read pieces of work that speak to you quite immediately. I don't think I read it and thought, oh, this is me, but it felt like it was asking us to look at ourselves. You know, most work that you read in English literature is they're about adults and about lives and situations that you're using like only your imagination for. You know, whether it's Shakespeare or I don't know, whatever kind of novel it is, there is an element of like having to sort of put yourself into that world, a world that you don't necessarily understand yet at the age of 14, 15. But Lord of the Flies is about kids your age, and I remember it made a bit of an impact when I read it. But yeah, there's this new TV adaptation that's on the BBC. It's 4 episodes. Each episode's an hour. And I think it's fantastic. I don't know if it's my favourite thing ever, and I don't think it's necessarily lots of people's favourite thing ever, but I think it's definitely a piece of art. It's quite interesting the way it's been made. For a start, the entire cast is children. All of the kids in it are between the age of like 5 and 13, I think. There's a couple of adults who appear in it. There's an adult who appears at the very, very end, which happens in the book. And there's also some adults who appear in some flashbacks. But the vast majority of it is about 30 kids who are all quite young on this island. And that's just amazing. A show that can sustain 4 hours of content of just children acting is quite impressive, I think. The adaptation's written by Jack Thorne, who also wrote Adolescence, which is obviously a very big show. And people talked in Adolescence about how amazing the performance of the main kid was in that. And yeah, I agree, good performance. But, you know, that kid was 14. These kids are younger, and there are only children, and there's no Stephen Graham to do any heavy lifting. There's no adults to do any heavy lifting. It's just the kids. And I think that is a feat and a real accomplishment and a really cool creative challenge that they've dealt with there. There's some similar themes, I guess, between Lord of the Flies and Adolescence. It's about boys and young boys and challenges around that and violence and things like that. Lord of the Flies is quite dark. Anyway, he's written this adaptation that's 4 episodes, and each episode, it's like a relay race. Each episode follows one character. So the first episode follows Piggy, who's one of the main characters, and then it gets passed on to Jack, who's sort of, I guess, the kind of antagonist character. Then it gets passed on to Simon, who's the sort of spiritual, slightly softer boy. He's almost this sort of Jesus figure. And then it gets passed on to Ralph, who's sort of the good-natured sort of almost hero archetype in the show, in the book, in the story. And that's an interesting way of framing it. It feels quite modern in many ways. It feels quite reflective of it's a microcosm, right? You know, it reflects. It's not just about kids. It's also it's about society and culture and the sort of beast inside all of us. Sorry, my camera cut out then. I can't remember exactly what I was saying. I was talking about the show, Lord of the Flies, and about what it represents. Yeah, it's a very cool show. It's directed by this director called Mark Munden, who I really like. He directed a show that I really liked about 10 years ago called Utopia. And similarly to Utopia, it's a very, very, very visual kind of TV making. I don't know if it's sort of filmy. I don't know, kind of. It just feels very, very visual. It's quite, it's almost like art, as in sort of visual art. It feels quite visual, and there's these bits they do at the start of the show and at the end of the show where they just go to all of the kids' faces for about a couple of seconds and just to look at them, and the kids just look in the camera. It does that kind of thing, and they shoot all of this stuff that happens at night, but they shot it during the day because they're working with kids. And these, you know, they're filming with kids, and kids can only be on set for so long, and they're in Malaysia, and they're on set in Malaysia, and they need to have schooling and stuff, so they had to film all these night sequences during the day, but they film it with these infrared cameras that turn all the leaves and the trees and shrubbery into this sort of red colour, while still maintaining the skin tones, which is quite a weird thing to see. And yeah, there's all of these very visual sequences. There's almost like choreography. There's these chaotic sequences where the kids run around, and there's these dances and set bits, almost like action sequence bits. And it feels quite choreographed in a way, but still chaotic and natural, which is really cool. And the music's really good. The music is the same guy. I think I was a bit confused looking into the credits as to who's responsible for the music, because there's a few people mentioned. Hans Zimmer is mentioned for writing the main theme with someone else, and I'm not really sure whether that's a piece of music they wrote for the TV series uniquely, or whether it's a piece of music that already existed. I couldn't really find much out about that. But the main composer, which is this guy called Christo Tapia de Veer, who also wrote the music for Utopia, a very interesting composer, does all this stuff with vocals that he processes with, like, changing the formant and stuff, so it almost sounds like pop vocals, where it makes it sound like it's low, but it's still the same pitch. Does all this stuff with that's like kind of processed and synthesized, kind of, but also sounds really guttural and like human. That stuff's really cool. And there's all of this, there's lots of classical music in it as well, Benjamin Britten and Messiaen, and it's like, makes it feel quite epic. The music's great, the visual language is great. I find Jack Thorne's writing sometimes quite cool, but I don't know, there's something about Jack Thorne's writing I don't love. It feels quite predictable, quite safe sometimes. I don't know, I can't articulate what it is I feel about Jack Thorne's writing, but it's cool, it's very cool. And obviously it's a cast of kids, so I don't know how good the acting is, but I think they do well, all things considered. And some of the little ones, like when they have these little scenes, it's like quite moving and quite compelling. There's these little kids who are like 4 or 5 years old, and they have these little bits, and it's just it's quite charming. I really recommend it. I don't know if anyone, well, some people might, but it's definitely not my favourite piece of TV ever. But it's a piece of art, it's a piece of work, it's not a bit of content, it's not a show, here's a piece of work. And I think it's quite the challenge that they took on, and it's well executed. Yeah, and there's a documentary as well. It's a little hour documentary about the making of it that also I think's pretty good, pretty interesting. It's interesting to just sort of get a sense of what it was like filming it, and the kind of vibe of it. It's quite a unique filming setup. They're on location in Malaysia, dealing with the weather and the rain, and they've got a cast of kids that they can only film with for 6 hours a day, and they've all got to like come over by boat every day to get to set. Yeah, very cool. It's quite a dark story, Lord of the Flies. I very much recommend it, and I haven't really talked to many people about it. I've got friends who have know about it and are interested in it, but not many who have watched it. It's just a classic example of like a BBC show that just kind of gets missed a bit, I think. What else have I watched? I've recently finished Industry, the new series of Industry, series 4, which is sort of at this point kind of a flagship BBC show. It's sort of become a bit more like those American shows that, have series after series, and they evolve a bit over time, and the cast changes and who we're focused on, and it sort of grows, the world grows as each series goes on. That's an interesting show. I mean, the first series I absolutely loved. It follows a group of graduate schemers, early 20s types who are on a graduate scheme at a big investment bank. And it's written by a couple of people who are from that world. And the writing of it is very incisive and savage and quick and technical and quite exposing to that kind of culture. It's not a world I know much about. But the writing made it feel quite like insightful. And it sort of follows this kind of work hard, play hard kind of culture. A lot of stress, a lot of drugs, a lot of entertaining clients, a lot of, it's focused around money. It looks at capitalism quite a lot. And the writing is very sharp. It's sort of like blink and you miss it kind of moments. Our characters say these quite outlandish statements about the world and things. And the series evolved over time, and the 4th series is a bit different to the others. It's sort of changed in genre a bit. The bank that it was focused around is it's not really about that anymore, but it still follows some of those characters. Some characters have left. There are some new characters that are more in the focus. There's a character that Kit Harington, famously from Game of Thrones, playing Jon Snow, plays, who's a bit more of a focus now. And it's cool. There's some good writing, and it's well made. It's a bit silly in places. Excuse me. It's sort of become a bit of a, I don't know. It's become a bit more of a crime thing. There's all this stuff about like Russian involvement in sort of Russian criminal involvement and gangs and people getting murdered and stuff. It feels quite different to how the show started out. But that's kind of what happens with these shows, right? They have to evolve, and they have to up the stakes each series, and eventually the stakes get a bit ridiculous. I still enjoyed it though, but there was a couple of episodes where I had to Google what had gone on, because it's a bit blink and you can miss it, and stuff is heavily implied but not necessarily said outright, and you're having to go, who is that character and what's the dynamic between them, and sometimes it's a bit confusing. I felt this season was a bit confusing, but cool show, and it has a lot of characters who see the world in the way I don't see it, and I find it quite interesting to sort of like take that head on, to hear these characters who are from a world that I'm not part of talking about the world in a certain way, in a way that's quite like gritty and savage and dog eat dog, and yeah. What else have I been watching? There's some BBC comedy drama 30-minute things I've been watching. I've been watching a show called Trying, which has got Rafe Spall and Esther Smith in, which is about two people trying to adopt a child. I think it's an Apple TV show that the BBC's got the licence for. It's not a BBC, it's not something they commissioned, I don't think. That's good. Light-hearted, nice cast. Easy watch. I like it. Small Profits, which is Mackenzie Crook's new show, who wrote Detectorists, which is quite a big show over here in the UK. It's one of those shows that sort of everyone likes. It feels quite similar to Detectorists. It's got that kind of small community, slightly off the beaten track, slow-paced kind of thing. There's sort of this connection with nature in it. The main guy, Pierce Quigley, is very good in it. He's very dry. It's quite funny. I really enjoyed it. It's sort of this great mix of like the mundane and the supernatural. Really nice. I'm very happy to see that there should be a second series, because it's just it feels nice to watch. Great, fantastic, and it's got Michael Palin in it from Monty Python, who I've not seen in something for, I don't know the last time I saw Michael Palin in something. I actually didn't realise it was him when I first started watching it. Yeah, I think that's quite cool that he's in that. And he's an older guy, and it's quite nice to see older people and stuff. I feel like we don't see enough older actors and things. There's just a groundedness and like an ability to just like not do much and it be quite like believable and compelling. That's great, that you only get with experience. Dinosaur, another BBC comedy drama 30-minute kind of series I've watched recently, both series that have come out. That's really good. Follows a paleontologist in Glasgow who has autism, and that's sort of the lens it tells it through. It's sort of a rom-com, love story sort of format, but it's told through this sort of lens of this character and their family, and it's sort of a love letter to Glasgow as well, I think. Nice, easy watch, quite funny at times. I liked that. I liked it. Again, I think the first series was better, but you're just picking up on a theme. Black Ops Series 2 just came out recently. That's really good. It's another BBC comedy series that they have developed. That's really good. I think it's got some of the same creators behind Famalam, which is another BBC comedy sort of sketch show. Black Ops follows they're community police officers who end up in an undercover operation, and then in season 2 they're working for MI5, but they're in another undercover operation. It's good. The tagline for it is "Shift got real," which is quite funny, I think. It's good. It's good. I like the characters in it. The characters feel well developed, particularly the main two. The main two characters. I mean, they're kind of cartoony. A lot of the characters, it's quite silly, but it works really well. I can't quite pinpoint what it is about it, but it feels very natural. What it is. And it follows, these two Black British London characters, and it's about the police and about the establishment and about the government, and there are some sort of drug gang characters in it as well, and it just sort of it navigates the kind of stereotypes around that in quite a soft touch way that I think is quite well done, and has these characters in it that you don't see very often. Like one of the characters, he's this really wholesome. So I don't know how to describe him. He's just really one of the main guys. He's really wholesome, and he's almost kind of like beautifully sort of naive and innocent in the way he interacts with the world. Yeah, he's really fun. He's really fun. I saw that actor play Bottom in Midsummer Night's Dream at the Bridge Theatre a few years ago. I think that was the first time I saw him in something, maybe. And now he's in this show and other stuff. Yeah, it's quite wholesome in some ways. I really like that. Oh yeah, I've got some other things written down here. Can You Keep a Secret? Watch that. It's pretty good. It's got Dawn French in it, who I've not seen in anything for ages. It's a good watch. Feels weirdly quite political. It's about sort of the faking of someone's death and getting life insurance payout from it, and keeping a secret about it. And it's kind of silly, and it unravels, and more and more people learn that this person's not actually dead. But it feels quite political in a way. Yeah, it feels quite like it's saying something about, I don't know. So, a while ago I finished it, but I remember when I watched it, I thought, this is quietly quite challenging, because it's a show that I think kind of appeals to kind of a Middle England, more middle-aged demographic, and it feels like it's quite actively challenging ideas around exploitation and capitalism and Britain, where it is at the moment. Dawn French's character says all the time, "It's broken Britain, it's broken Britain," in a way that's like silly and quite funny, and it's just like a go-to line. But also it feels like it's kind of saying something often when she says it. I don't know. It's silly. It's a silly show. It's a comedy, but it feels almost like it's questioning where the morality is around the fact that they've sort of ended up faking this guy's death. Ooh, my stomach. Yeah. I don't have enough. I can't really articulate what I'm trying to say because it's a while ago I finished it, and some of the comedy in it is actually very, very funny, very, 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 very silly. Like kind of mumbly, talking rubbish kind of bits that are just hilarious. Yeah, there's some bits where they talk about, like, there's one episode where they talk about, like, something being American, and they're just like bickering, and it's just very funny. It's also got Mark Heap in it, who's quite an interesting comedy actor. He's from Green Wing and stuff back in the day, and he plays the neighbour in Friday Night Dinner, and he pops up in lots of stuff. And he's a good comedy actor. Often plays sort of weird men. Things I Should Have Done, series 2. Watch that. That's quite good. That is more of a Gen Z show. I don't know what her name is, the comedian who wrote and stars in that. I've seen her. She's quite big on Instagram and TikTok and stuff. But that's quite funny. Feels a lot more younger generation. Yeah, that's a good show. Sort of about this character who's, I don't know, she's sort of, her sort of caricature is that she's a bit dense, and that her parents have died, and she's not done anything with her life, and she's a bit simple-minded, and so it's about her trying all these things that her parents wanted her to try. But she interacts with the world in quite a sort of simple way, in sort of quite a ignorant way. She doesn't understand how anything works. It's quite funny. Good, nice cast, and the main cast in it's quite cool. There's her stepbrother who's quite funny, and then her stepbrother? No. Is he a stepbrother? No. He's her cousin. He's her cousin and her uncle. And yeah, they're actors I've not seen in other things really, but they're quite funny. The uncle character is very funny. Very dry, very British. What else have I been watching? Ah yes, The Night Manager. That show that came out 10 years ago with Hugh Laurie and Tom Hiddleston, and then to everyone's surprise they announced they were going to do a second series 10 years later. Yeah, the first series I remember really liking. It's sort of this spy thriller show with Tom Hiddleston as this sort of James Bond-esque character. A lot of people said that it was sort of his pitch to be James Bond. And it's got Hugh Laurie as the villain character. And the second series has come out. It's good fun. It's quite, it feels quite action-packed and, quite exciting. And there's some nice locations they film in and things. It's the same story as the first series. And it's a bit silly in places. They have these, lunches where, Tom Hiddleston, who's the protagonist, and Hugh Laurie, who's the antagonist, sort of chat together, which feels really camp, because it comes from this feeling, this need that we want to see the two people, head-to-head talk to each other. But it's just, the way things play out is just not how it would have played out, There's no way they would have had that lunch together, too high risk, and it's a bit silly in that sense. It's quite camp, but it's still fun. Olivia Colman's northern accent is not great. Yeah, fun though. It's good fun. Oh, my stomach is really rumbling. What else have I watched? Ooh, What It Feels Like for a Girl, which I watched a while ago now. It came out almost a year ago, I think, but it took me a while to get around to watching it. Yeah, I watched that a fair few months ago, probably finished it probably in October, November last year, but that's got to be one of my favourite shows of all of last year. It's, I think, amazing. I think very, 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 very good. It's based on Paris Lee's autobiography of the same name. Autobiography? I don't know how much of it's an autobiography. It's a story that's based on them. I I think they changed their name and stuff. I'm not sure actually. I've not read the book. I've got it over there on a bookshelf, but I've decided not to read it yet because I want to have forgotten what happens somewhat further to enjoy the book as much as possible. But it's very good. I think it's 10 episodes. And I just think it's very, very good. It's quick-witted, quite fast-moving. It doesn't sort of make itself palatable. It just sort of throws... It's just like gutsy, honest, truthful, doesn't care about taboos. It feels like a fever dream watching it, like going through some sort of... It's like a trip. It's like going through some sort of wormhole to the depths and then coming out the other end. And I just thought it was really, really good. And it deals with this character who we learn is trans as the series goes on. I think it deals with it really well. Sorry about the dog that's outside. It deals with it really well in the early stages because the character's identity is sort of unclear. It doesn't sort of set itself up as like, here's his character who's trans, and it's sort of kind of very helpfully vague. The characters sort of figure out who they are, and we're sort of figuring out who the character is. And it plays with that greyness, I think, quite well. And it doesn't feel lectury, and it doesn't feel virtue signally. It feels quite just like, here's the truth. It's quite dark. I just really liked it. I felt quite affected by it. And I just think it's very well acted, very well written. Yeah. I really, really, really liked it. And there's something about it that feels quite empathetic. It's... I don't know. Don't want to get into this massively, but there's something about the way that it's written where, like, these characters do bad things, and there's quite a lot of sex and drugs in it, and it's quite, like, explicit with stuff that happens and things these characters do. But in, like, showing these characters at their kind of... I don't want to say at their worst, but showing these characters and not asking you to sort of see them as... I don't know. It's not asking you to sort of see these characters through some sort of rose-tinted lens. It sort of just goes, here's this character, this is who they are. There's something about that I think can create more empathy in a way, because you accept the character for all their flaws, and you see them, and you see their choices, and some of the choices the characters make are really quite icky, but in doing that, it can actually create quite a lot of empathy, because you can also see these characters' humanity, and you can see the complexity of stuff. It's also a show that's set around the millennium, which feels like a weirdly nostalgic time, particularly for my age, because I remember the millennium, but that's sort of the earliest times I remember. It's a time before social media and smartphones and stuff, and that's kind of quite cool to see in a TV show. Seeing the noughties, it's like the noughties are kind of becoming cool again, We're sort of, I suppose, in the sort of fashion cycle. We're sort of in the 90s at the moment. I think we're about to move into the noughties in terms of fashion. What seems retro again, I guess. But yeah, very cool show. Yeah. Yes. So thank you for listening to my essay about the BBC. I will probably move on to another platform soon. I've watched so much stuff. I mean, also The Traitors. Watch The Traitors. Fantastic. Another flagship BBC show. I think lots of people watch The Traitors, but they don't watch a lot of the other content on the BBC. They make so many good documentaries, comedies, dramas, stuff about history. Yeah, There's loads of stuff. There's so much stuff on there, and you just don't need Netflix. Sorry, my camera cut out again. It's not my lucky day, really, is it? Yeah, the BBC. Great programming. I hope you've enjoyed my sort of rant / essay on the BBC's output. I sort of think I will always champion the BBC on those grounds. Yeah. I will watch stuff on another platform soon. But for now, I'm finishing up the stuff that I'm interested in that's on the BBC. And there's always new stuff as well. There's always new stuff. I've just started a new show called The Welshes. And there's other stuff that I've missed that I need to go back and watch. Loads of dramas that I've not watched. Yeah. But there's stuff on Netflix I want to watch. There's stuff on Apple TV I want to watch. I think Apple TV's really good, actually. Definitely feels like quality over quantity on that platform, as of now. There's stuff on Now TV I want to watch. There's some stuff on Amazon Prime I need to catch up with. But, I'm rambling. But don't overlook the BBC, Channel 4, ITV. I don't watch ITV stuff that much. I used to when I was younger, but BBC's my favourite, then probably Channel 4. Yeah, so if you're in Britain, please watch the stuff the BBC put out. And if you're not in Britain, they're in the UK, then maybe you can get some stuff on the World Service. Not sure. But yeah. Okay, I think we'll finish there before I ramble on and say the same thing several times. Yeah, let me know in the comments what your favourite TV shows are, and whether what stuff are you watching at the moment? Where do you get your TV fixes from? And maybe, some good suggestions around future videos would also be nice. I always have these ideas for videos, but necessarily ideas that I have, I don't know. I sometimes make videos and I'm interested that they don't get that many views. And I'm not obsessed with the views. I'm not obsessed with just playing into what will get me hits. But it's obviously nice to see comments and to see people interacting with videos, so it feels less like talking into the void. So I'd be quite interested to know what you'd like to see, what interests you. Maybe I can make some stuff that appeals.